What made the stalker cases even more controversial was the evidence that the police tried to cover up what they had done. They told cover stories, they told lies, and that simply confirmed people's suspicions that there was a shoot-to-kill policy and the whole thing was operating illegally.
I think that did give rise to those perceptions, undoubtedly. That's the case. I think the motivation for those cover stories was the protection of methodology, the protection of informants who had originally given intelligence, and I think the intention was to create a perception that these police officers just happened to be in the places they were.
Which they weren't.
Which they weren't. They were there on a planned basis. They were there on the basis of intelligence.
Stalker penetrated the darkest corners of the secret war when he investigated the dramatic events that took place at this hayshed. Special Branch had established that the IRA had hidden a huge quantity of explosives inside, and MI5 had planted a listening device to keep track of them. But the device failed to work. The explosives vanished. The result, a huge crater a few miles away, 15 feet deep and 40 feet wide. The explosives had been used to ambush a police car. The 3 officers inside were killed. Had MI5's bug been working, the tragedy wouldn't have happened. MI5 then planted a second device in case the IRA returned. When the device picked up voices, the Special Police Unit moved in and shot dead 17-year-old Michael Tighe. He'd no IRA connections. His friend Martin Macaulay was wounded. Inside were 3 old rifles without ammunition. The police said they'd shouted a warning. Macaulay told a different story.
We looked at the barn, the window was open. Went over to the window, there was metal objects. We climbed in to have a look. Within a few minutes, Michael Tighe, there was 2 shots rang out, Michael Tighe was killed instantly. I seen a guy with a rifle moving across the door. Once he had disappeared, the whole place exploded in gunfire. I moved to get cover to the opposite side of the door, and in doing that I was hit.
But it should have been possible to find out whether a warning had been given. MI5's second device had been working at the time of the shooting, and the tape of it ought to have resolved the contradiction. Stalker discovered that MI5 had made 42 tapes of the hayshed. He concluded that the last tape, tape 42, must have recorded the shooting and therefore could resolve the question once and for all. For months he fought to obtain the master tape and was constantly thwarted. He was eventually told it no longer existed.
It transpires that the vital tape, the security service tape that recorded the actual shooting at the hayshed, disappears and is destroyed.
Well, I mean, I have no personal knowledge of that, but clearly...
Well, you know the tape disappeared.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I mean, that was very much the focus of John Stalker's investigation. And of course these things, of course they give rise to the gravest suspicions in the minds of people as to what lay behind those sorts of things.
Although the master tape, tape 42, had been destroyed, what John Stalker did not know was that a cassette copy of it had been secretly made by one of those monitoring the hayshed at the time as a macabre personal souvenir. When MI5 found out, it ordered the cassette copy to be handed over to it, and it remained locked away in MI5 safekeeping for some years, until, that is, John Stalker appeared on the scene. Around that time, a senior MI5 officer in the province ordered one of his MI5 colleagues to destroy the priceless cassette copy. As a result, the vital remaining evidence as to whether police officers did issue a warning before opening fire was removed. Did you know that a copy of that tape had been made?
No.
And did you find out that a copy, once it had been made, had been destroyed by the security service?
Only when I heard about it from the report. I didn't know about these things in advance.
Colin Sampson, the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire, completed Stalker's inquiry. We have discovered that, controversially, His report recommended that MI5 officers should be prosecuted for conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. The great majority of those who heard the tape heard no warning. And when you read in Mr. Sampson's report that the copy of the tape had been destroyed by the security service, what was your reaction?
That this, if true, was most unfortunate.
The Attorney General of the day was Sir Patrick Mayhew. Although he was told that there was sufficient evidence for prosecutions, a political decision was made that they would not be in the public interest. The last thing the government wanted to see was MI5 officers in the dock, charged with destroying vital evidence. It would have been political dynamite, and the consequences for MI5 would have been seismic.
What I had in mind was that criminal proceedings would be used under the procedures of the court to elicit a lot of material of vital importance to the intelligence services, and that this would be enormously damaging.
It would also have been extremely embarrassing if security service officers had been in court charged with destroying the vital evidence that John Stalker had been looking for.
Yes, indeed.
The copy of the tape.
Yes, yes.
The additional reason why prosecutions would have been so sensitive is that some of those against whom prosecutions would have been brought were serving members of the security service MI5. That was the additional sensitivity, wasn't it?
Well, I think I've said what I said to the House of Commons, which represented the truth, that a lot of intelligence matters would have been brought out, and that would have been very deleterious to the intelligence operation that was essential in the circumstances of the time.
Were you in favour of prosecuting?
I think I saw it as a finely balanced case. I don't think I don't want to go further than that.
The problem, of course, was by declaring that there would be no prosecutions in the public interest, people simply said, well, what did we tell you all along? It was a cover-up.
Yeah.
If the political bombshell ticking away in the hayshed had exploded in court, it might have jeopardized not only MI5's methodology, but MI5 itself. Covert operations were thereby preserved. All soldiers and policemen are legally bound by the yellow card, which allows them to open fire only when their lives are threatened. But there are no unbiased witnesses to an armed confrontation. In the heat of battle, legal niceties may not always be observed.
There is not a shoot-to-kill policy.
Anna joined the Det in the 1980s and took part in many covert operations against the IRA.
All I can say is that on every briefing it was the yellow card and that arrest, and obviously if arms are brought to bear that you would open fire if you believed your life or somebody else's life was in danger.
Wasn't there a nod and a wink on the yellow card?
None at all. Nothing like that at all. They're professionals. They're professional soldiers, not cowboys.
But however precise the orders to arrest, no Republican will ever believe that there was not a shoot-to-kill policy. They simply point to their graves. The Brits shed few tears for their victims, knowing that few would be shed for them.
Explore a different world next on UK TV History. How would the fate of Britain be altered if the Romans hadn't triumphed against Boudicca's army?